Hey, Mitch.
Oh, hey, Ed. I was just brushing up on my alien literature.
Oh,
Did you know that this year marks the 45th anniversary of the show Mork and Mindy?
oh, yeah, I love that show. That's the best documentary series I've ever seen.
Oh, no, no, no. It wasn't a documentary, you silly Australian. It was a show.
Yeah, it was a documentary. It was the best documentary about life on Orc I've ever seen.
Oh, and I suppose you are from Ork?
Well, I don't want to give anything away, but
What do you
uh,
do? Fly around in a giant egg, too?
well, funny you should mention that.
Oh, shazbot. Let's just start the show.
Hi, this is Ed Dollister.
This is Mitch Halleck.
Are you doing? I thought you were doing some mime. Are you making fun of my outfit? That's what you're doing. And welcome
That's
to
what
another.
you look like. I
That's
couldn't
it.
place until now. It's like, oh, look, it's Marceau.
It is.
Or
And oh no, I'm trapped in a box. And welcome
Shields
to
and
another
Yarnell.
exciting episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. I'm Ed Dollister,
And I'm Mitch Halleck.
and we've got a great show for you today, looking at a classic sitcom from the 1970s. But before we begin, Mitch, if you are interested in finding out a little bit more about the show, how can you find out more?
Oh, Ed, it is as easy as getting your own spin off show after jumping on the Happy Days bandwagon. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button on the bottom, and you too will be subscribed to Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure YouTube show. And hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when we do another adventure. And hit the like button because that's what Mork would want you to do. So, Ed, let's talk about Alien.
Yes, well, not Alien in the horrible sense, but Alien in the fun loving sense. And we are going to be talking about the classic sitcom that ran from 1978 to 1982, Mork and Mindy. Now, everyone, I think, is still familiar with Mork and Mindy. One thing that was great about this show was the catchphrases, there was the wild personality of Robin Williams. But a lot of people don't realize, as you alluded to, with that mention of Happy Days, that it started off actually as a character from Happy Days in a one-off
Hmm?
episode called My Favorite Orkin.
It did. I remember watching Happy Days. I was a
Yes,
big fan of the show. And it was a revelation because Robin Williams was just breaking onto the scene on TV. He's a stand-up comedian, setting the world on fire all across the comedy clubs. But this was his big foray onto TV. And he just, I think his performance on that episode made producer Gary Marshall say, hey, let's write a show around this kid. And that's what they did. But the funny thing is, Ed, did you
mm.
know Robin Williams was not the first choice to play the alien Mork from Ork?
He wasn't. No, tell me more.
No. There was I think it was comedian Buddy Hackett and some other folks there, but they passed on the role. They didn't want it. In fact, I think there were some other guys that were doing the audition too. But basically, when Robin Williams walked in the room, he stole the casting director's hearts because he didn't sit down normally, Ed. He put his head into the cushions and had his rump up in the air, and that's what got him the part.
That's
Just
right.
like I
Well,
got on this show.
that's right. That's right. So, and yeah, we don't need to see your rump anymore. But thank you for keep offering on showing it every week. With Robin Williams, basically Gary Marshall basically said, well, Robin Williams was the only alien to audition for the show, and that's why he got the part. And he was amazing. Basically, he came in the episode My Favorite Orkin, which was a take on My Favorite Martian, the classic 1960s sitcom
Yep.
with Bill Bixby and Ray
Ray Walston.
Ray Walston. That's right. And basically, he comes in and freezes the Cunningham family, and it's up to the Fonz to try and stop Mork from
Yeah.
taking over the world, basically.
Well,
And
Richie's awake doing it because it's Richie sees what's going on. It's
he
not
does
just
at the end, and then all of a sudden you find out it's actually all they have a sort of a thumb off, which is
yeah,
really
yeah.
cool. And of course, the Fonz prevails. He wakes up. It's all a dream, and then at the very end, There's a visitor who knocks at the door, and it's actually Mork, but it's not really Mork. It's just
No.
someone, and everyone gets freaked out. It was that sort of, was it real or wasn't it
Was
real?
it real or was it?
And it was such a huge response, as you said, that they decided to take a spin off it. And the reason that they brought Mork on to Happy Days was this was in 1977, and they were trying to somehow, how could they tie in to a little bit of that Star Wars?
Everybody wanted that Star Wars.
Exactly,
goal.
they did.
Yeah.
They wanted a bit of that sort of popularity as well. So that's why they brought in the alien, and it worked really well. And a year later came Mork and Mindy.
Mork and Mindy. That's right.
Set in Boulder, Colorado.
Yes.
Boulder, and I always wanted the Jeep that they drove around in, and I love the house, which is still there. And did you know that house also featured in one of my all-time favorite sitcoms, Perfect Strangers? So in the final season, that was
really.
It was the house that they were renovating. Let's not. I could talk for hours on Perfect Strangers.
So well, maybe we'll do that some other time. Yeah. Featuring Connecticut's own Mark Lynn Baker.
I know,
lived right up the street. But I remember opening credits of that show because they were in Boulder, Colorado, and then they always had welcome to Boulder. They have this sign with the population, and then at the end they're on the football goal. He's afraid to do, like hanging on there and stuff like that. They were having so much fun. But you know what I remember so much about the show was really the first season, which I didn't realize until I did some research. We actually do research on the show, but I always remember, Conrad Janis being on the show. I remember her grandma,
Elizabeth Kerr, who played Cora. I remembered that they were always throughout the show. So they were.
But they weren't, though. Not so much. They
weren't in it for the second season. They got written out.
Yeah, which is weird because it's like I thought they were always part of the show because I just remember Conrad Janis and I just remember, Cora, you cut it, and she'd be picking on him. And then they were trying to figure out the dynamic, like, okay, he's Mindy's dad, Mindy McConnell, played by the lovely Pam Dauber.
Yes.
And
she had the best hair I've ever seen.
Did. Well, until this show. But, and then Conrad Janis, he was a big musician or a fan of marching band music or something.
Yeah, he was a conductor. He was
always having a trombone with him.
Yes.
Yeah, like they always worked that into the show somehow too. But go ahead.
I was just going to say the first season was a huge success.
It was
a ratings winner, and inexplicably they decided to.
Yeah.
I think they call it is it counter programming, where they move it against something else, and they did that. They got rid of grandma and the dad, and they said that basically Fred and Cora were off touring with an orchestra, and they ditched the record store. I always loved that record store.
The record store was great too. Yeah, he'd go in there.
They had all these contemporary records up, and
right. And then they bring in Jay Thomas and his sister to play like this Italian guy from New York
in a restaurant.
In a restaurant, yeah. I'm like, okay, I guess.
And they also had Tom Poston, who
Tom Poston, he was the new landlord, wasn't he, Mr. Big?
He was, he lived below them and was a greeting cards, and he was just rough and gruff, and basically would, he warmed up as the season went. But we should point out that obviously Mindy knows that Mork is from Ork, and she decides to keep him. We didn't do the premise setup.
No.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, I said so. He comes down from the planet Ork. He's an Orkin, and he's there. Is it to observe the people? And he would report back every week to.
That's right, to Orson.
Orson, that's right. The unseen voice. He would just close his eyes, and how would he do it? He'd just do the Mork
calling Orson. Come in, Orson.
They would just go to a black. There, yes. Yeah. And that was it. So why was he sent to spy on the Earth for some reason?
Basically, I think he was just there to observe and to see what the culture is like. And basically that's why he started to, he hooked up, not literally yet, with Mindy. And
eventually he would. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, well, they get married and they have a child, which we'll talk a bit about. But
Yeah.
basically, Mindy said, "Oh, you can live in the attic." And
That's right. He lived in the attic. I remember that. Yeah.
it was that, clash of cultures, really. We're not,
Yeah.
perfect strangers. Again, when you think about Balky from Mipos coming
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
America, it's all that, fish out of water story, I
No, there was
suppose.
always some fun stuff in there because I remember like it would usually end with Mork asking Mindy about some kind of human custom or earth
Yes.
custom. I remember they were washing dishes. I always think that every time I put a dish in the dishwasher, I literally do. He's like, "Why do we wash the dishes before we put them in the dishwasher?" Because they were like cleaning off the food, then they put it inside. And then
Yes.
she was like, "Oh, because we do this." And then I thought they did an episode where either Cora died or Cora's friend died.
No,
And then
it wasn't Cora, because
yeah.
she came back later on as a sort of a guest
Right.
in
But then
season 3 and
but she
4.
had
But
explained,
they did have, now who was it? One of the characters did pass away, and one of the
yeah.
characters actually had a heart, I think, I had a heart attack and died in the shop, and he in the record store, and
Yeah.
he didn't understand the concept of death, or what
Yeah,
was
that
happening.
was the thing. He was like, "What happens here?" I remember that. He was always this like naive, like almost like a childlike
Yeah.
character, and he would just like try. It was almost like Starman, which would come out a couple years later
Yes.
with Jeff Bridges and again with
Karen
Karen.
Allen.
Yeah,
That's right.
but maybe
So
maybe John Carpenter got the idea from that and said, "I'll just do a serious chase
it
movie."
could be. I mean, it was a huge success, and a lot of it was
Well,
obviously due to Robin Williams
Robin Williams.
and
Yeah,
his amazing improvisation. If you go onto YouTube, you can
yeah.
find some really good outtakes of Robin Williams as Mork, and the scenes from it. And what they
Oh,
often would do in the scripts, the script writers would basically just say, um, Robin does something funny here, or does some improvisation. So there were actually gaps in the script to see what would happen with
and they would just let the cameras roll.
yeah, and you often know those parts because you have a look at Pam Dorber or some of
And
the
she's
other
laughing.
and they're trying hard to not corpse on
Yeah. No,
on
he was
screen.
on fire. I mean, Robin Williams just took the world by storm. Like when that show came on in '78 after the after the Happy Days soft pilot, and they came on with the full show, it just exploded. I mean,
Oh yeah,
everybody was doing the catchphrase "Nanu Nanu" and you know
shazbot and
shazbot and just shake
yes,
their fingers like that
yes.
and all that stuff. But the thing of it is, like I said, when I was looking into this, I was amazed how quick that show burned out. I mean, I thought it was on for 5 or 6 years. I was stunned to find out it was only on for 4 years. But then when you start looking at the cast changes, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes. Like you said, counter programming. They could not leave it well enough alone and just say, okay, we got a formula, let's let it stay because they got rid of the old folks. They brought in the Italian brother and sister. They even changed that in the third season. Did Tom Poston get written out because he wasn't on for the whole show? Mr.
I don't
Lee.
think so, but they brought in Jim Stahl, who was this Nelson Flavor, who was
That's
like
it.
a local politician.
They did have some quirky characters though. But my favorite happened to be the one played by Robert Donner, and that
Yes,
was Exodore. And
yes.
he was like always in robes and come with me and over there. And I
It
don't
was
know if
like
that
this
was like
prophet. He thought the
yeah,
Venetians were after
yeah.
him, and
Yeah, I don't know if that was like a character he did offset, like, on the stand-up routine, like on the nightclub circuit, and he just came on there because he was always like, I don't know if he knew Mork was an alien or he was just so
it.
out of touch
I
with
think
reality.
he
He
could,
didn't
because
care
he did know that Mork was an alien, but no one would believe him because
because he was nuts. Yeah,
he was a little bit crazy. He was a really popular side character. He appeared in 21 episodes
Yeah, I
of
thought
the
he was
run.
great. Why wasn't he a regular on every week? Because he was just as crazy as Robin Williams. Robin Williams
Yeah.
would be over the top, and he'd have this like, "Hey, watch me." So he was a good character. I'm gonna say there was a lot of other characters like Corey Feldman, very young Corey
Yes.
Feldman, popped up on that show, and I maybe it was more than one episode, but I remember him being on there and like talking to Mork and learning about like that he was. I thought he found out that he was an alien or something too, but
And
maybe
we also had there was, I suppose it was Mork's arch nemesis from Venus. I'm pretty sure it was Venus.
oh,
Do you know who that was? And we only spoke about him in our previous episode about Sword and the Sorcerer.
Well, it wasn't Lee Horsley.
No, it was Joe Regalabuto,
Yes,
who
who
was his arch
eventually,
nemesis.
yeah, and he would go on to Murphy Brown years
Yes,
later too. But yeah, no, he would come on too. And I think they had a big like battle, almost like Darth Vader versus Luke Skywalker.
yes,
Didn't they fight with their fingers?
yes. And they
Wasn't
go
it like
to, they
vroom,
actually end up,
vroom, vroom, vroom,
Mindy
vroom?
ends up going to Orc.
Yes.
You get to see Orc. And look, the ratings basically, it was like number one, or
Yeah, it was
three
the
in the
first
ratings.
season, and
It
then
was
it boom.
huge.
Yeah.
Then they moved it, and it moved
Oh,
something to like
Thursdays.
47th or something like that. Then
Yeah.
they go, oh my
Yeah.
God, what have we
What did we
done?
do? Yeah.
The second season as well, they changed the opening theme.
Yep.
It was the same theme, but they disco-fied it to try and
Yeah.
make it a bit younger. And that was another thing too. They wanted to try and get that younger audience, and that's why they got rid of the grandfather and the
Oh,
grandmother
yeah.
to
Okay.
try
Yeah.
and, which was a mistake, obviously.
Well, yeah. Didn't work.
And then they brought them back for season 3, and it
Yeah.
sort of recovered. It got to like 25 or
Yeah.
20, I think. And for season 3, and then season 4, it ended
Yeah.
at around 25th, but it never really recovered from that
No, it never did.
amazing
It's
first
amazing.
season.
Well, season 4 was when it got really weird because they brought in Robin Williams' mentor and his idol in comedy, which was Jonathan Winters, who was
Yes,
around long before Robin Williams. I remember my dad cracking up if we were watching a variety show and
yes,
Jonathan Winters was on. He would be like on the talk show circus. He was another guy that could just sit there and you would go, oh, here's a pair of glasses. Oh, these glasses. These glasses went up the hill with Teddy Roosevelt and he got shot, but the arrow bounced off there. And he said, oh, you know what? We're going to use these bifocals from now on. I want everybody to wear them, even if you can't see right. And that's what he did. Yeah. Yeah. And he would literally be on TV here, the Jonathan Winters show, and he'd have a chest, and he would open up this chest and he'd just pull out random props. And
yep,
depending on what it was, he would just do a whole riff on that. I mean, it'd be a coffee mug, it would be like, a hot water bottle, a dog
mhm,
dish, and he would just come up with some story out the top of his head. And he
yep,
was a genius for doing that. And Robin Williams admired the hell out of him. So they were like, let's bring these two comedy greats together. However, they did some bizarre Orkin, biology thing where you're born old,
yes. They
full
Benjamin
grown.
Button him before there was Benjamin Button,
Yeah, and then
and
you end up aging backwards. So he was born in an egg, if I recall, and then
yes,
it smashed through the egg. You know what's so funny? They did have a lot of tie-in toys, and I know we're going to talk about the merchandise, but I remember this now, the Mork from Ork egg, and inside of it
it
was
was Gloop. I
like
think it was like
like
gloopy stuff.
slime. It
Yes,
was like a purple slime. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm remembering this. And it came with like a little plastic figure and it was just all gooey. But I hope that was goo. But they had that happen when Jonathan Winters was born, but he walked around with his baby, this sound like, oh, what are we doing, father? Oh, I don't know. Ooh. And it was like little just
I remember
I
as
didn't
a
like it.
12-year-old when that I
Yeah.
saw that, I just was not
No.
it just
It
lost
puts you
me.
off. It was
It
like,
did.
ugh, am I supposed to be laughing about this or do I feel bad for this guy because is something not right with him? But
Yeah.
even that can save it. And I gotta say, I think what was going on in the outside world, if we can get a little dark, is Robin Williams had a notorious big cocaine problem. A lot of
Yes.
time you see him on that show, he's out of control. And he says after the death of John Belushi in 1982, he said he stopped using cocaine and drugs. I don't know if that ties in to the show's decline because he was like,
Well,
dealing with a lot.
look, I think there was probably a lot of factors. Certainly the changing of the scene and the characters didn't really help, and moving
Yeah,
it around,
time
um,
skip.
yeah, I think that didn't really help. I know that I did read that Robin Williams was saying that he was a pretty shy person, even though he was
Yeah,
quite a outgoing on stage. He started to take cocaine in between takes because he didn't know what to
yeah,
say to people.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so unfortunately, it didn't sustain
It
its
didn't
high
help anything.
quality.
Yeah, yeah.
But one thing that it did sustain was the quality of merchandise, and
Oh God,
it
yeah.
was from straight out of the gate. So you knew that was. And here, one of my pride and joys for my collection is my Mork and Mindy Mork with talking space pack. I wouldn't
Yes.
recommend pulling my talk. Don't go up to someone and go, "Can I pull your talking ring?" Because I think that is probably not a good thing. But if you have a look, I like how they had
Oh, he was upside down. Yeah.
is
Yeah.
upside down.
Well,
They
that's
also
how he used to call Orson. He used to be upside down when he would
and
fight here.
they used to also they had a Mindy doll as well. But
Oh,
on the back here, you can see
yeah.
some of the merchandise that they had. So they had the Mork talking rag doll.
Yep.
They had Mork from Ork, which was I'll do proper pictures here. So Mork
Is that
from
a
Ork.
Mego figure?
No, these are all from Mattel.
Mattel.
So
Okay.
then they had the Mindy doll, and this is what you were talking about here,
Yeah, that's it. That's the egg. I had that.
containing orc goo and an orc creature.
Correct. I had that. Yeah.
So they had these wonderful toys. So I'm lucky to have mine box. They did
Oh,
have
go
a
ahead. Say it.
lunchbox.
I was gonna say, okay, let's go. Do they have the lunchbox? Yeah, they
Yes,
had
they
the
did.
board game.
Hold
I
on,
have the
you know what I have to do? I've got to plan this because you know when I put pictures up,
yeah.
I've got to have a bit of time so I can put the
Oh,
picture up.
all
But
right, all right.
they had a lunchbox.
And a
They
lunchbox
also had a board game. They also
puzzle.
had they I think they had puzzles, but they had card games as well.
Okay.
Um, like a lot of them did, and they also had trading cards as
Oh
well.
yeah, I've seen I still see the trading cards out there now and
Yep.
then.
And there were lots of books as well. So they had like some novelizations. They had the Mork's Guide.
Yeah.
And they also had remember photo novels?
Yeah, I remember photo novels. Yeah.
Okay,
There were
so they had a
pictures from the
more
show. They
yeah,
would put so people don't know what we're talking about. They would take a book, they take an episode or a movie, and they take all the stills from it and assemble it like a storyboard, and they would tell the story of the movie with little word captions like a comic
yeah.
book. There
So
was
they
Star
had
Trek had 'em,
yeah,
and the Hulk had it.
I've got all the Star Trek ones. I've got Close Encounters. I've got
Oh, okay.
Can't Stop the Music. And also they did one from Mork and Mindy
Mork
as
and
well.
Mindy.
Yeah.
Now, he had a comedy album out because I mentioned when we did our Blues Brothers, which you can watch, by the way, our Blues
Mhm.
Brothers special. That when the Bluesmobile crashes into the mall, they hit a record store, and when they pull out, there's a life-size cutout of Robin Williams, and it falls over. And I always caught that because another thing Robin Williams made famous on the show was suspenders like you have on, but
Yes.
they were the rainbow suspenders that I think even Urkel wore or somebody. I do remember those being like, oh look, those are more.
I
Whenever you
know
would see the
I
suspenders,
couldn't find mine. You know what I'm going to do? Of course, as soon as I stop recording, I'm going to
yes, you're gonna
find
find it.
the closest I got to Robin Williams was when I was in San Francisco,
Yeah,
near Fisherman's
Wharf.
Wharf. There's
Yes.
a what is it? A wax museum, and I've got a
Yep.
picture of me with this very good Mork from Ork. I'm not sure if it's actually Mork from Mork or it could be just Robin Williams, but I'll put a picture up of me with him, and I'm going, oh, that looks pretty cool. Um, but there's lots of merchandise. It's still
I don't. Yeah, I don't know if there's a comic book. I do know that it was on Cracked Magazine. In fact, I should have got it for the show. I do have a copy of it.
yes,
It's Cracked Magazine with that was like a Mad Magazine type of thing, like a satire book.
I do
And
have a
Mork
few
was on
crack
the cover.
magazines. Yes.
Yeah, in fact, he was on the cover with. Funny, he was on the cover with Superman, Christopher Reeve, because that came out in 1978. And off camera,
I was
ironically,
yeah.
he was in theater school with Christopher Reeve with Superman.
They were
Robin
roommates.
Williams was Mork. Eventually, he's going to be Popeye. That's another thing that we could talk about briefly. And Kevin Conroy, who was the voice of Batman, they were all in acting class together. So you had Batman, Popeye, and Superman all together at the Juilliard School of Acting here in New
And
York.
that's why I put that on to remind me
Yes.
that
Best
he
friends,
is
actually. Very good
yeah.
friends. In fact, when Christopher Reeve had his terrible accident and became paralyzed, Robin Williams was one of the first people to come to see him. He disguised himself as a doctor, and they didn't tell Christopher Reeve, and he came in and he pulled the mask down and he just cracked him up and made him laugh for
Yeah.
like the first time since he had
Yeah.
his troubles. But very good friends with Christopher Reeve. Robin Williams was too. He did. You know what? I got to say this. Robin Williams is one of those people that He was amazing. When he was alive, when he was back around, you'd go to the movies. There was two Robin Williams phases. I used to notice that when you went to the movies. If he had a beard on the movie, he was going to be in a serious role. He was going to be in
Yes.
Good Will Hunting or The Fisher King or any of those movies. If he
Moscow on the
did have,
Hudson.
yeah, if Moscow on the Hudson, that's right. If he did not have a beard, it was going to be a wacky, it was going to be Patch Adams, or it's going to be Mrs. Doubtfire,
Yes.
or Jumanji, or any of those other movies that he did, or Hook. Ugh.
Yes.
But anyway, he had a great movie career. Never came back to TV again though, but just would do these comedy specials and was a fixture on all the late night talk
Yes.
shows. And he
Now,
was just
do you know,
amazing.
did Mork make an appearance in Out of the Blue or Blansky's Beauties?
Well, that's what I was going to mention to you earlier. We talked about that. Those are a lot of other spin-offs from Happy Days.
Yep.
You said Blansky's Beauties, which I don't recall at all. That was with Anne Marie, wasn't it? Isn't that the actress name? I believe it's Anne Marie.
Yep.
She was it was like, some stage girls in Broadway that was Howard's cousin or something from the city, or Marion's cousin, Mrs. Cunningham, one of those two. But Out of the Blue was after Mork and Mindy. That was about an angel that came down to visit Fonzie and Richie. I think it was just Fonzie saw him. And that was another spin-off show that just didn't work. I don't even know if I remember watching one episode of it. And I don't know if it lasted like 2 or 3, or they didn't even come back after the pilot. But Out of the Blue, then there's, of course, there's Laverne and Shirley,
Yes.
which did well.
And Joni
I
loves
think
Chachi.
Joni Loves Chachi. I think they almost tried a Lenny and Squiggy one, but I don't think it ever came to fruition there.
Well, we've also got to talk about the Mork and Mindy cartoon show.
Oh God, yeah, yeah,
So
that was on.
we had
He did the voice for that too.
Yes. So did Pam Dorber. So did Conrad Janis. So they brought them back for I think maybe about 21 episodes.
Yeah, everybody had a cartoon show. Even Fonzie had a cartoon.
Oh yeah,
show.
well that was part of the. It was sort of like the Fonz and Mork and Mindy, or Fonz Happy Days.
Laverne and Shirley were in the army.
Laverne and Shirley in the
army.
Yeah.
They all had their own like Saturday morning TV cartoon. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can check those out as well.
Where are those on YouTube? I don't think
you can find them on YouTube. So you've got that. You've got some great merchandise. They did release in Australia. They only released, strangely, the first 3 seasons. I think in the United States, you've got all 4 seasons as a box set that you can get. I'm sure it's on some streaming somewhere. But the first season is definitely one to watch, because
the first one's good, and then it just falls apart. Literally falls apart.
The other thing I remember, this must have been in season 2. It was set at Christmas, and I remember Robin Williams, Mork got the remote control. There was a remote control R2D2.
Oh,
maybe it was 79. Maybe that was season 3.
Yeah.
I remember he had that remote control R2D2 in the as one of the presents up in his attic, and I always thought, that's cool. I was always on the lookout for Star Wars toys in any TV show, any Star Wars
in the background. Yeah. No, it was, like I said, it was a fun show when it lasted. I remember watching, but I fell off like a lot of people did and just didn't tune in. And then you'd almost groan when you'd go back into it. And you're like, no offense to Jay Thomas and the other people that came on afterwards as the supporting cast. It just didn't have the same. I don't know. I
felt like those two belong more on Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah.
They should have hung out with Carmine and those guys.
Yeah. So, but I don't know how you mess that formula up. The fish out of water type of thing. But it just imploded on itself. And when they created the whole mythology about the Orkins and the bad guy, it became too Saturday morning kids TV shows type of stuff,
And I think I suppose by the end of that anyway, Robin Williams has gone on to started to make Hudson was, I think, 82, wasn't it?
Popeye came out, and that was
80.
Yeah, but that wasn't a big hit, but that was supposed to be his breakout role.
Yeah.
Moscow on the Hudson maybe was his big movie that brought him out of movie. He didn't want to do TV anymore. He was like, I should be in movies. Yeah. So that's what happened there.
Yeah. That's it. So Mork and Mindy, it is a classic. if you love Happy Days, if you love Laverne and Shirley, you need to get into Mork and Mindy as well.
Surprised they have not remade that show yet. They've seemed to remake every other TV show. So
A dark,
you know what it is?
edgy,
You'd have to get a comedian like Robin Williams, and you're not going to find that.
and you're
So
not going to
that's
find that because he was a one in a
yeah.
Googleplex, I think. Yeah, he was. There's never going to be
Yeah,
another.
I think that's the whole thing. That's why you don't see a Mork and Mindy remake, because you're not going to be able to pull that off. And who
That's
would
true.
want to? Imagine that. You'd have constant comparisons to like, oh, and it's
There
like the
is
show.
there is a guy who now they
Yeah.
did a behind the scenes of Mork and Mindy. They did a telemovie,
Yeah.
and there's a very short film about him being Robin Williams. I think in the makeup chair, ready to go on, and he does an amazing impersonation of
Oh.
Robin Williams. So check that out if you can. Mitch, where can you check out other episodes of our show, Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure?
Oh, and as easy as, I don't know, putting some rainbow colored suspenders on and, drinking water out of a glass with your finger and, going like this. All you got to do is hit the subscribe button on the bottom.
Sorry, I caught you unawares there. That seemed quite complicated.
Well, but all you do is hit the subscribe button on the bottom, and you too will be able to go follow our adventures through Orkin and Earthlings and all around the pop culture world for the last 30 or 40 years as we talk about the things we recall. Maybe you do too. Here on the Mitch and Ed Show, hit the notification button too. You'll be notified when we go back down memory lane, and hit the like button because Mork would want you to. And that's about it, Ed. I have nothing else. I'm going to climb into my egg and take off.
That's what I'm going to do. And of course, if you've got a memory about Mork and Mindy, or fact check us, did we get something wrong or we forgot something, please mention it in the comments, as well as if you've got anything we would like, you'd like us to cover, we'd be happy to do so, because we've got some really interesting things in the pipeline, and we've got lots in our back catalog as well. So that's it. Signing off. I know. I feel like we need to do this.
I was going to say, do we sign off like this?
I think so. This is Ed Dollister.
This is Mitch Halleck saying.
And we'll see you next time.
Manu.